Hello and welcome to the Sci-Fi Christian. I'm Ben DeBono.
I'm Emily Kirkwald.
And I'm Ben Kirkwald.
We're back for season 7, everyone. You know, everybody's doing Game of Thrones reaction shows now. This is ridiculous. But we were here from the beginning.
Right.
So
right.
From season 1, well, I didn't do anything for season 2, but season 1, Sci-Fi Christian did reaction. But we were from the very beginning.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, and you guys been with us in
yeah.
season 3. Emily, you didn't make it to any last year, I don't think.
I didn't.
So welcome back.
Thank you.
Now,
Glad to be back.
People are long-time listeners are going to be thinking, where are the pipes? Where are the pipes? Well, you are expecting again.
Yes.
Right.
So no pipes for now. But what's going to happen is we're going to do the video. We're going to kick Emily out. And then we'll do a few minutes after where we'll get some pipe action. So if you absolutely need your pipes, that's you just gotta wait for it.
Yep.
All right. So we have Bend the Knee, which is a golden ale brewed with honey. This is the newest Game of Thrones beer from Amagon.
Oh, that actually sounds like one I would like.
Well, you can probably have a sip.
Yeah.
Baby won't mind a sip.
No.
I think I've had this once before. I won't say what my thoughts are on it because I don't want
I've
to
also
bias
had
you.
it once before.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Let me look at the label.
Like that? It's a
Yeah.
brand new one. Just came
That's
out a few
the
weeks
one-
ago.
No, I got that for my birthday.
Well, your
Back in
birthday wasn't
May.
that long ago.
It was a month ago.
Well,
month and a half
yeah,
ago.
a few weeks, couple months, something like
I haven't had it before.
that. Holy
Alright.
crap. All right.
Get that in a glass.
So what did you think of it when you had it?
Well, I'll let you know after I have this one. Because I feel like... Well, I have to try it.
All right, there you go.
It's been 6 weeks. You never know.
That's right.
Your taste buds are turning over.
Yeah, every 7 years. It happened over these 6 weeks.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan when I first had it. It's okay. I think it's a little sweet.
Yeah, it just doesn't have a lot to it.
Right.
If it's not full-bodied, which is, I mean, that comes from the honey. The honey does not give.
Right. Honey
A lot of-
ferments out and
yeah.
everything.
So,
But if you really like if you don't like beer, you might like this beer. I think.
I think that's a fair way to say it.
Yeah, because it's very sweet.
Yes. And yeah, it's just got foam.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's very sweet. Not a ton of flavor. Not a lot of background to it.
Right.
And
So,
my first bottle.
yeah.
This bottle is actually better. My first bottle was overcarbonated.
Well, yeah, this one is a little bit too.
Is it? I haven't gotten down there yet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I feel like Amagon
yeah.
has been hit and miss a little bit
Yep.
with their beer, and this one is unfortunately a miss. So I'd put it probably in the bottom half. The ones I've liked a lot was the Take the Black Stout.
That was my favorite.
That was really good. The Three-Eyed Raven.
That was good.
The Valar Daharis, which is what you brought
Which is what I brought,
for next time.
Yep.
I like those ones are probably my favorite. I like the Iron Throne Blonde Ale a lot.
That one was good, yeah.
I
better
like
than expected on that one.
Yeah, they did a wheat one that was okay last year.
Yeah, this is probably the worst one so far, I think.
Yeah, Fire and Blood I didn't think was very memorable.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
And then Valar Morghulis I didn't think I just kind of had a reaction to. Anyway, everyone, we're facing a different way. Just because every year, I guess I do something out here in my office that mix things up. So this year, I changed from, I had my projector set up and I had a 100-inch screen. Now I have a 125-inch screen. We've rotated things.
Right.
So now we're facing a different direction here in my office, but it's good to be back. And
with a 125-inch screen.
125-inch
I was at a
screen.
movie theater tonight.
That's right. I mean, I hate going to the movie theater. Like, unless there's something I really want to see.
And we're talking about getting a second row. So
Exactly.
now it's you and 5 friends
Exactly.
over to watch a movie on DVD 6 weeks after it's out or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, unless you have to see it the first day, even if you rent it on Amazon or something, like what's that $10 or something?
Yeah.
It's cheaper than going to the movie.
Yep.
So invest in projectors, people. They're totally worth it.
Right.
All
Are
right.
you going to turn off the air conditioner?
What do you want me to?
Oh, did you need to?
I wasn't going to.
No.
Um,
Alright.
I think it sounds okay. If it, I tell you what, everyone, it's hot in here. I only have this window air conditioning. If the audio sounds terrible this week, we'll sweat it out next week.
Alright. Fair
But
enough.
I think we're going to leave it on for now. Okay, so Dragonstone, Season 7, Episode 1. I have not rewatched Season 6. I know you guys have.
Yep.
So there might be some things that I wasn't quite caught up on, or some things I might ask you about as we go along, because of course starting with Season 6 we're in uncharted book territory, and we're really off the reservation here tonight. But this was a really exciting episode. They promised they're going to pick up the pace this season, and well, I don't think we're quite all the way pedal to the metal yet. You still kind of feel like there's a lot building, there's a lot happening. This felt like 3-4 episodes worth of setup condensed into one episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning with the Walder Frey. I have here on my notes, I wrote Walder Frey flashback. It had to be a flashback because he was dead, but then I had to cross out for flashback because that was great.
Yeah.
How far into the scene did you figure it out?
I think the second he started to rant at them about the red wedding, that was when I figured it out.
Maybe it's just because we just watched that episode not too long ago,
Yeah.
but I think as soon as he said, like, have a second feast again, or whatever,
Yeah.
like, oh, we just had a feast, let's have another feast. It's like, that's not Walder Frey at all. He
That's
hates
true.
these people with a passion. Like, he thinks his own son is a dunce, and so I kind
Yeah.
of started catching on there, and then when the wine got passed out, I went,
When the wine got
Yeah.
poured, that's when
Yeah, it was great though.
Yeah.
And then she rips off the face. And
no,
So that's...
there we go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so that's really interesting to know that Arya can take the face of a familiar person.
Right. And
Because before we've just seen her be random.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even the face of a person, we don't see her ever getting that skill. You know, we don't ever see the education of that, and so how in the world is she able to just do this? Is this just something given to her by the
speak in his
gods,
voice.
or there's some sort of magical power
Right.
that happened when she drank the elixir from the the death pool last season? Is that when she all of a sudden has the power to be nobody?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but every face that has been taken is somebody who's dead, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that kind of makes sense then for whatever she learned, and obviously, I think that's one of those areas where when Winds of Winter, someday when we're all old and in the retirement home and Winds of Winter finally comes out, like that might be something we get a little more information on. But it seems like whatever skill she's acquired then, because she took Walder Frey, when she killed him, she took his face at that point.
Right.
Yes.
And at the chapel, I don't know, like at the temple
House
where
of
they,
Black
the
and
House
White.
of Black and White where they were, it seemed like a very complicated process to do that, so
Right.
there seems to be, already in this first episode, I guess I noticed a lot of plot holes that weren't there before, which is fine because I'm willing to sacrifice those to go
we're
forward.
all willing to get going at this point.
Right, it's, the books will fill in those plot holes guaranteed,
Right.
and we can just kind of move forward with
That's probably like he spent the last 2 years. Like, how does she get the damn face? Like, what's going on? He's
right,
just
yeah.
trying to work
How
it
does
out.
this all work?
Yeah. And then I was kind of excited because, she gives her whole The North Remembers. And then we'll talk about Bran in a second, but we know we have Bran coming through the wall. We have Sansa and Jon. And Arya's coming up through the neck, the twins. And so it's kind of like, the Starks are all converging. But then later in the episode, turns out she's heading back to King's Landing to
Right,
go kill the Queen.
right. Which
So we'll see what
she's
happens
working her
with
way
that.
down the list. I don't remember the rest of the list.
Right, so it was from the books, I know Ilan Payne
Yep.
was the executioner, and I
Where
don't
did he
think,
go? Is he dead?
he's kind of irrelevant at this point in the show.
Okay, alright.
I think the Hound is on her list.
Yep.
Is Gregor Clegane on her list?
Yeah,
I think he
Gregor.
is.
Yeah, the mountain. She
The
says.
mountain. Yep. Some of the different
Cersei.
torturers who are in book 2.
Joffrey is dead.
Well, yeah. So she doesn't have that many more to go. They've been
she's
weeded
good,
out pretty well.
which is amazing.
Exactly. All right. So let's back up a little bit then, because we have this brand scene. But before that, we have what I think was a vision he was having of the army of the dead coming through,
Right.
and they have dead giants. So that's a game changer.
Right, because real giants almost broke through the
Mm-hmm.
wall, and they were real, and they could be killed with bows and arrows.
Right.
And now these fake giants, these
Undead,
undead
zombie,
giants,
yeah, White Walker giants,
Right.
whatever they are.
They are now going to be unleashed. Well, you know what? I guess we don't know. Every time, like when we had Benjamin Stark got to the wall last year, I have to leave you here because there's strong magic in this wall.
Right.
Eventually, we're going to find out what that strong magic is.
Well, we got hints of
And-
that tonight as far as where they're going. Because so far, everything has happened, for the most part, at the wall at Castle Black.
Right.
But everything points towards the big confrontation at the wall is going to happen at Eastwatch.
Right.
Which, I don't know how much that's been mentioned on the show. Essentially, to catch people up in terms of book knowledge, Castle Black is the main castle on the
Yeah.
wall, but the wall has tons of castles on it.
It's 12, I think.
Yeah, which most are abandoned at this point. And so we'll get to John in more detail, but John sends he sends the wildlings to Eastwatch, which is the easternmost castle before you get to the ocean, and then the whole deal with the Hound's vision. When he looks in the fire, he sees the army of the dead coming through the wall at Eastwatch. So
Right.
that seems to be where they're headed.
Well, that's the problem with any wall, is that the wall has to end.
That's true.
And then usually there's typically an ocean, and it's like, well, if I sail 10 feet out and around.
That's true.
And if you have people that turn things to ice automatically, they just step onto the sea and walk around it.
We
Call
should
it
ask
good.
the president about that. See if he has any plans for how to deal with
Yeah,
this.
we don't
He
know.
might. He might.
Probably
Anyway.
the solar panels.
That's right. Solar panels. Now, this is one of the things I wanted to ask you guys because I know you've rewatched the show. Jojen is dead at this point, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I was
Jojen
pretty
died
sure.
before they
Right.
got
Yeah.
into the shelter, even.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought, but I wasn't 100%
Yeah.
sure because I know he comes back with just Mira.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of a theme, a little bit of this episode, is that things are converging. The scope of the world is getting smaller. You mentioned it, Emily, right from the beginning, where in the opening credits, there's no Marine.
And
In
no
fact,
Bravos.
No Bravos. We're all Westeros, and
Right.
everybody's happy there's no Marine. But the scope is getting smaller,
Yes.
and that's exciting. My guess is that this season is going to mainly be still the war in terms of the Seven Kingdoms. And then at the end of this season, I think, is when we'll see this Eastwatch battle the White Walkers and all hell will break loose.
Right.
But who knows? I thought that
Yeah.
John coming back from the dead was going to take most of the season. That happened week 2, so we could be here next week. Well, the White Walkers are in King's Landing. What are you going to do?
The White Walkers are in King's Landing next week. I don't even know. Although I am nervous, like every time I see a dead body south of the wall now, because we've seen, like the Hound later in the episode buries those two.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I was waiting in the background while they were talking. You could see them hazy, just waiting for like the eyes to turn blue and them to like stand up there in the building.
Yeah.
Even though they're south of the wall, it's just.
Yeah, that crossed my mind too. Like, maybe they should burn those
Yeah.
bodies.
I don't know if they want to bury those at this
Bury them deep, boys. Which, being able to bury anything on frozen ground is impressive. I mean, we live here in Minnesota. You don't dig when it's snowing outside. That was well done.
Yeah.
They used to not dig graves when it was
Yeah, exactly.
outside that.
And then you have these multi-year winters. I mean, not that we need to get too deep into the grave digging culture of Westeros, but that's gotta throw a wrench in the thing. You can't just put them in a morgue for a few months.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what they do.
It's cold outside.
Yeah, that is a conundrum. All right. Winterfell, let's stay in the north here. So Jon has a plan. He wants to dig up a lot of dragon glass, which we later learn is at Dragonstone, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Wildlings are going to Eastwatch, but I think the big thing from this whole Winterfell portion is Jon versus Sansa.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if versus is the right
Well,
word, but
I think it is
that
versus. I
they
think that
disagree.
that's versus. That's the
Yeah, that's what.
But they're not.
That's what
They're on the same side.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. Not
Sansa's
on
on
this point.
Littlefinger's side.
Well,
I
is
don't
she?
know about that.
Well, we'll get
I
to that in a
learned. Well,
second.
I learned a lot from Queen Cersei. That's like, Joseph Stalin was a great mentor. It's like, well, that's really throwing it out there.
Yeah, but when Littlefinger comes to her aid a little bit later, she's like, I know the game you're playing, stop doing it. Go away.
Yeah, but she is under his thumb. He's got her. She might know the game he's playing, but he is playing her.
He's playing her in a different
absolutely.
game on top of the game.
Yeah, well, I just think, he's out to sow seeds of dissension there.
Right.
He has a different game than just stopping the White Walkers.
Right.
His game is to be king, even if it's King of the Ashes.
So he'll make a deal with the Night's King.
If
he had to.
Yeah, exactly. He would. And so Littlefinger has a whole different game.
Alright.
Sansa, I think this much is obvious. She's far more cynical than Jon is at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Which he's been dead.
Which, yeah, it's like he dies.
But he did come back, so that's got to give you some hope for the world.
Yeah.
She's just seen a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was
But
married.
And then if you think
to
about the
Ramsay.
two converging forces here, we have Jon in the north, and we have Daenerys, who is hopefully eventually going to be taking over the south here. Now we have a completely different mentality that is, at least at this point, not corrupted and it doesn't need Sansa's view right now of the world.
It's going to get there pretty quick.
It's going to get there really
Yeah.
quick, but right now, you can't conquer a world with Sansa's view.
That's true.
And Littlefinger seems to think that you can, and maybe he will.
Well, but he not with Sansa. You can conquer the world by using people with Sansa's view. That's Littlefinger's position.
Okay, that's fair.
Speaking of conquering the world, I want to end on Dany, but did everybody just leave Dragonstone?
That's what I.
No, they all did. There was hardly anybody there anyways when they all sailed up
I
to...
was thinking we were going to end with some kind of
Right.
battle of her taking... No.
Isn't it pretty amazing that she just arrived and it was like, here's
But,
our home.
well, we'll get to this,
Yeah.
but I don't care because she's there.
Right.
And, yeah.
Did you really want to wait through 20 minutes of that? And
No,
then, yeah.
not really.
She
And
was
then
going to do it anyways.
It's true. And then we have the Raven from Cersei, and Cersei seems to think she has leverage over Jon.
I don't... She knows she doesn't have leverage over Jon. When
She's
she talks
such a
about...
delusional idiot.
Well, but when she's talking to Jaime, we have enemies to the north, south, east, and west. We're absolutely screwed.
Yeah.
Like, she sent that out in almost a desperation mode.
Right. Yeah, she's managed to piss off everyone in the Seven Kingdoms at this point.
Well, that's the only way you get to the Iron Throne.
That's true. And then we have Brienne and Pod later on, and Tormund, which that was pretty great.
I'm just waiting for the romance
Some
romance
to
story.
really
Yeah,
spark.
that's right.
They're gonna get
Brienne.
married, and then they're both gonna die in the next battle or something. Like, that's how it's gonna work.
Right. So we already talked about King's Landing a little bit, but let's keep going with that. So, what do you think of the Jaime and Cersei dynamics?
I thought it was pretty typical of both of their personalities since Jaime lost his kingdom.
Yes.
And
But
I think that, I don't know, her perspective on life has obviously changed. Her 3 kids are dead, just like the prophecy said. She's
Mm-hmm.
queen, just like the prophecy said that she would be. The prophecy is done now for her, I think. I think everything has come true. And so now she's in it for herself. And Jaime's in it to have a legacy. You know, he has to think about well, I guess now he doesn't, the White Book and having a page in there.
Right.
That's not for him anymore, but he's more about what's going to happen down the line, and she's about, well, this is my life, I want to live it the way that I want to.
But I think Cersei's dark side was more apparent, more evident now that Tommen's dead. Now that her children are dead. I mean, she always had a dark side, but it's like at the forefront now.
Jaime looks like a man who's staring down the countdown clock on a bomb and trying to figure out how far away he needs to get to avoid the blast.
He's like,
this isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
So now is he gonna start fighting for Dany in the end here? Like, is Cersei gonna do Cersei's gonna do something that he can't forgive, and then he's gonna go fight for Dany.
I'm gonna let the dog out.
Okay.
Let you guys talk about.
Is that where you see that storyline going?
That.
Yeah, I don't know because it's fine.
Pass that to me.
But you wanted me to like catch it off the
No.
table. Now I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh.
All right.
The one thing I want to get back to at the end is the map that was being drawn under Cersei.
Yeah.
Because I think either intentionally or unintentionally, I think there are some, I don't know, equivalents that we can draw between that and the last scene with Dany.
Okay.
Well, we'll get there at the end when we get there.
Yeah, let's get there when we get to Dany. So then Euron shows up, he proposes, he gets shot down, takes it in good stride.
Which is weird because, well,
She's not gonna marry Euron.
She said that she brought him there because he needs a queen.
Right.
But she wasn't going to give him to her that easily, which just, she has absolutely no leverage. She could have said, oh, that's fine, I'll go find another queen, or, oh, like, I mean, and then he would have been gone. But obviously his lust for power, she knew, was just as great as hers, so she knew how that was all going to play out anyways. Mm-hmm. Which makes it really interesting because when we get there, which I think we will, Euron's army is designed to fight on the water, and Daenerys' army is designed to fight on the land. And if they come in contact with each other, there's going to be a clear winner.
Yes.
Where Daenerys is going to lose 3/4 of her army. They're going to get there, and she might win, and she might control King's Landing and everything, but she has 1/4 of the army that she was supposed to have.
Yeah, but she has dragons.
Because of what Euron did. Yeah, she has dragons, that's true.
Yeah, dragons versus ships, it's not a good combination.
Alright, well, I guess I didn't,
Yeah.
But there's thousands of ships.
3 dragons. I'll take the dragons.
Did you see how long it took the dragons to destroy that one ship? All 3 of them.
Well, that's fine, but you just send your fleet away, just let the dragons do their thing.
Start a little fire on each
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't take much. They don't have to go overkill.
Alright.
Alright. In Old Town, Sam is hard at work.
That may be the worst scene I've had to watch in Game of Thrones history.
I've watched some disturbing things in my time. I watched Lars von Trier's Antichrist, and I kept my eyes on the screen the whole time, and you can read the Wikipedia description to learn what a feat that was. There's 2 things I've looked away on. Pasolini's movie Sallow, which involves people eating crap, like eating it. I watched a lot of it like that. And then this sequence in Game of Thrones. Like, this was horrific. Holy crap, literally.
And, you know, you kind of have to give it up to him, because would he have done that when he got to the Night's Watch?
Well, you can give it up to him. My complaints with the people, like, let's show
Why
it.
did we have to see
Good
it?
Lord.
Well,
So to really drive in that this is a really terrible situation.
Right, that he wants to get out desperately.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly his plan at this point is not to become a maester.
Right.
Clearly he knows he's here to learn his information and get out.
But I want to talk about the shit a little bit more.
Why?
So, a few years ago I was on a camping trip. I don't do camping, but I went to the latrine, And I don't know anything about latrines, but there's the old latrine there and it had a rock on it covered up. And because I didn't realize that was the old latrine, I thought that was the latrine. I didn't see the new one next to it. I took the rock off and opened it up, and I thought I'm going to hold it for the whole week of this camping trip because it was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced. I was having flashbacks to that. Like, why do you need to show that?
Right?
Like, I said here, it's the most R-rated content, and I defend their rights as creators. You don't need to show that. Like, censor that. I'm as anti-censorship as possible, and I want that scene censored. That was horrific.
How did he not get cholera or something? You know?
Well, and not to mention, what a dick move from Jorah at the end when you've got leprosy or whatever it is called in this world, the dragon's grayscale, and you're just reaching out like that's
but
not a way
clearly
to
at
make
that
friends.
point he's already going crazy.
That's true.
And so he's not even having a rational thought.
But Sam has the worst job in the Seven Kingdoms, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does.
Okay, but he makes his way into the leaked area
Right.
after dealing with the autopsy.
Right.
Which I can watch that all day.
Actually, yeah,
that was fine.
I would have been like, ugh, with that, but then I was like, God, that's so
After
large.
that
I was like, whatever, let's cut open a few more bodies. This is fine. I'll even go and help if I can
Also,
just
that
not watch
liver,
that
my
scene.
God.
Yes.
I mean, I guess I don't know what a liver looks like, but that was a
It's like, yeah,
huge liver.
yeah, well, drinks up.
Guess we want to
Well, if the camera's moving, my dog is back there bumping it with his bed, so I'm sorry. Okay, but he does find out about Dragonstone. We talked about this a little bit. He learns that there's a mountain of Dragonstone in these really old ancient tomes that are written in perfect modern English. That was a nice touch.
That was?
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
But that's like 3 chapters in a book where he found it, didn't know what it meant, had to bring it to a master and bribe him, and had to do all this stuff. That's what I'm saying, like, there are these plot holes that just would have taken up time to the same end. And
In fairness to them on that one, I'll excuse especially anything with Sam, because you have to remember that when Sam he's sent to Old Town at the end of book 3, right? And you have to remember that at that point, George R. R. Martin intended for there to be a 4-year gap in the story between books 3 and 4. And so obviously part of that was going to be Sam going and having all this time to learn and to study. And now that I don't know how Martin's going to handle that, because he's such a perfectionist about everything, but especially the
he's
show.
probably watched tonight's episode and was like, that's how I'm going to do it.
I wonder if he's just watching. It's like, I just spent 2 years on that one scene.
Right? And they just did it in 5 minutes.
Exactly. So I really give him a pass on that, because Sam's stuff was obviously, even more than all the other storylines, intended to have this big gap that you could fill in all this stuff that had happened.
Right.
And it's just not there. Yeah, so that's that.
And Gilly was allowed to stay in Old Town.
Right.
In Old Town, but
not the
yeah,
Citadel.
yeah.
Not the Citadel, yes. Alright. We want to end in Dany, so I think we've talked about everything except for the Hound and Dany. So the Hound, remind me how he got hooked up with the Brotherhood Without Banners.
So he was building like a little temple or something, right?
Yeah, he was with Ian McShane.
Right, Ian McShane, and Ian McShane got killed and everybody got killed. So he went to go find the people that killed him, and it was people in the Brotherhood Without Banners?
No, he went to go find the killers of the people, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Brotherhood Without Banners had killed them.
Oh, okay.
Had
No,
them
we're
hanging.
yeah, it was
We're
gonna
going
kill
to
them.
kill
Yeah.
them. They were hanging there, and then the Hound was like, "I need to kill this."
Right,
person."
and then they were
Down
like,
here and was like,
yeah, and
"Stay
then he
with
like,
us."
yeah, and so.
Yes. And then he has this crazy vision where he looks into the flames. That was wild.
Which-
That was,
That he even got close to the flames. It's
Yes.
and it really,
unusual.
I think that scene and then the scene right after really cement the fact that the Lord of Light in this story is real
Oh, yeah.
and the Seven
Yeah.
are not. I mean, can you remember the words? I'm
Yep.
surprised. I wish he would have asked, because I would have been curious to know like what the Lords of, like, or what the Lord of Light followers say.
You just burn him, probably.
Probably,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
I bet they're into cremation. That's just a hunch I have. But yeah, no, that was a good scene, and to be honest, we're all excited about them saying we're going to pick up the pace this season, and everything. But at the same time, you don't want to lose those human moments. And I thought the Hound burying the dead was, and that was really good. I think.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
And I think that going back to Arya for a second, because I don't think we hit on the scene where she meets the army,
right?
Which is a pretty interesting moment, because she stops there, and I would assume the only reason she got off her horse was she looked at them and she said, I can kill them all right now, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she sits down and she has a meal with them. She realized that they hate King's Landing just as much as she did.
Right.
And that they have kids and that they have this whole other backstory to them. And so I don't know, not hopefully maybe, but maybe this is a turning point for her where she has got, I mean, she is as dark as Arya has ever gotten. They were doing the Walder Frey thing. And so either this is the Arya character starting to turn a corner the other way to being a more respectable person, or the first scene of the next episode is going to be her hovering over all of their dead bodies.
Well, the one thing in that scene, that when the one guy said, if you be nice to strangers, strangers will be nice to you, I took that in a very sexual way. Like,
see, and I guess
because it's Game of Thrones. Like, I'm not a sicko.
Well,
The show's a sicko.
Yeah, that's why I was like, well, why is she stopping?
Yeah, exactly.
But they also acted way better than any other.
That was the weird thing. That line didn't fit the rest of the scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and though they didn't fit the rest of the people that we've seen sitting on the side of the road. Everybody else that we've seen were taken off the horse and raped her in the woods.
Exactly.
And they
just tried to. I don't think you're going to succeed with Arya at this point.
But they just didn't fit the description, and so.
Yep.
Hopefully for Arya, I guess I'm not quite sure how her
hopefully it was just a weird line of dialogue that they didn't intend that way. But given the show, that's the most obvious way to read that line.
Right.
But we'll see if we ever see them again, or if she's just on her merry way in the next episode.
Hopefully she's just on her. I would imagine.
Yeah, I agree. That would be my preferred way.
If it was 10 episodes, she might stick around.
That's true. Yeah, they'll just have 7 episodes of them wandering around, eating whatever they were eating.
A rabbit.
Was it a rabbit?
That's what they said it was.
They said it was a rabbit.
Then Dany finally, the moment I've been waiting for since I was 16 years old and started reading these books, it's like half my life at this point. I'm 31. Dany gets to Westeros, and I thought they were going to troll us and just cut to black. Well, she's on the rowboat going to shore. It's like, she's not there yet. There's still time. They might change their mind. But no, she gets there. She has the palm print on the ground. I kind of complained earlier that there's nobody at Dragonstone. Okay, but it was still a great sequence.
It was,
yeah.
And I guess I really liked it. You know what I liked? The best part of that scene is they walk into the throne room and she doesn't sit down.
Right.
Where every scene that we've seen in King's Landing, they go in and the first thing that they do is they sit down in that throne. Like that's the place. I think.
Well, she's ready
Ned
to go.
Do it even for a second, like even Ned.
Yeah, I think Ned sat there.
I think Ned even sat there too. Like it's just she knew that there was work to be done, and so she went behind. She probably didn't know what was back there. I don't know. Maybe she did, but she gets back there and it's like, we got work to do. Let's go. And so that mentality of I'm here, but I still have a lot more to do.
Right.
Was good to see. It wasn't I'm here, thank God, we're done. It's not enough, which is a little bit concerning maybe towards the end of the storyline if she has that mentality of it's never enough.
That's true. That's
She's been
it's
working
one of the
so
bittersweet
hard,
ways it could end.
I did find it interesting that they didn't give Tyrion any dialogue.
Yeah, but she was the only one. That was the only line in that scene.
Yes, yes, and I think the scene was perfect the way it was. But I just found it interesting because he's usually
Yeah.
good one for one-liners.
Right.
That's true. So you had mentioned you wanted to come back to the map.
Yeah, I think so. If we go back to Cersei's scene, she is having the map of the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros being drawn.
That's very helpful to help us keep everything straight for where everyone is.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And I don't know. It's like metaphorical or whatever. Is that her map is just being painted and it's very two-dimensional. But the one that Daenerys is working on is old,
Yep.
three-dimensional, and it's just gonna be it's so much more real, it's so much more there than somebody just painting it on the floor.
Yeah, I like that metaphor. I can get behind that.
Right? And I think, I mean, obviously they had to intentionally have done that. They wouldn't have painted Westeros on the floor for no bear.
Well, I thought the reason. See, I just assumed the reason was people are going to get confused about where everyone is. So let's have a giant map that we can have dialogue
Right.
scenes. Which that might be true, but I like your interpretation better.
I think that, yeah, well, because they brought up the map in the preview, like in the previously on.
Yes.
So that's why it triggered my memory when she got there too, is that, this map is important, and this map is old, and Cersei's map is new, and this one is going to last for forever, whereas Cersei's is going to get rained on and start to wither away. And
That
there's
is
a lot
true.
of other metaphors that you can draw from that, but
That's awesome. Okay, I like that better than my utilitarian
You're welcome.
interpretation.
you're the lit major.
That's true. That's true. You went all metaphorical on us there. I was just like, well, they want to help the audience keep things straight.
All right, Sansa.
Which they don't need to
cynical
do.
person.
You're right. We all have smartphones. We can pull up a Game of Thrones map on our phone if we need to keep things straight.
Right.
You don't need the showrunners to hold your hands. All right. Any final thoughts on this episode? Where you think we're going to go from here?
Well, judging by the, I don't know. So they've released 3 titles of the episode so far, and so I feel like the next one is called Stormborn. That's episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like
Which is a reference to Daenerys Stormborn.
right.
Yep.
And so I think if they're gonna go as quick as they say they're gonna go, Daenerys is gonna take King's Landing next episode.
Wow.
And
Really?
then the third one is called the Queen's something. The Queen's Revenge or the Queen's Wrath or I don't know, something like that. And so that's where I think that Cersei is gonna get axed.
I disagree with you just a little bit because I think there's something that has to happen first before she goes to King's Landing. And that's that they've set up a confrontation between her and Jon over the dragon glass that's at Dragonstone. So Dragonstone has to remain her base of operations until Jon gets there.
That's
So the
nice.
the Raven's on its way to Jon to tell him about the dragon glass at Dragonstone, and then he and she are going to square
they're gonna
off.
meet.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think they're gonna.
Probably confrontationally at first, until they realize they have common cause.
Well, but she doesn't even know about any of that yet.
Right,
I mean,
right. That's why
she doesn't realize the
confronta-
problems that
Yes.
she's walking into, right? Yeah, I mean, that's one way it could go. Or it could just go the other way where by the time that Jon gets all the way down there, that it's like, hey, we need this dragon glass. And she's like, oh, great, I have it. That's fine.
No, that's too easy. That's way too easy. Like, they've set up that he's about to discover that Dragonstone is the most important location in the Seven Kingdoms. He's about to learn, and she occupies it. And she doesn't care about the White Walkers.
But she doesn't.
That's what I say.
He
They're
doesn't-
going to bash heads.
He
Yeah.
doesn't need more enemies either.
True, but he
So-
needs more dragon glass.
So,
They're going to come to blows over Dragonstone.
yeah. All right.
Which so eventually
It's her family home.
Yeah,
She's
that-
gonna want to defend it.
they'll sit down and talk.
Right. And it's like, we need this dragon glass, and she'll say whatever. But Varys is there.
And she'll learn he's her brother, kind of, or nephew, and they'll all
In
hit
the
it off that
same
way.
way that
Yeah.
it's gonna be like a Star Wars thing, where it just like comes to fruition out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ghost of Obi-Wan will show up.
Right. They'll see it in the flames.
Yeah, exactly. That's something like that. But no, there's got to be. She can't move on to King's Landing until that showdown has happened.
But that's the epic. I feel like that's the epic showdown in season 7.
No. They've got to be on the same team by season 7. I think this season is going to see all.
I guess
of
I've
that
always
resolved.
pictured Jon as the ice, not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's a clash between ice and fire, clearly that confrontation has to end in season 7.
No, it's a song of ice and fire, not of ice versus fire.
The ice and fire.
So,
Exactly.
so they're going to come together. Obviously, next season there's going to be some sort of rift.
No, there'll still be ice versus fire. It'll be the dragons versus the White Walkers. See, that it works on both those levels.
Alright.
But yeah, so I do think you're right that she's going to get to King's Landing and depose Cersei, and Cersei's going to die and everything. But I think that first she and Jon are going to square off, and I think that will be where we go next week.
And it could actually very well be a while, because when you go all the way back to the that temple that she gets trapped in, that Jorah can't get her out of, she walks into that room, and when she's there, the throne room is completely empty. The ceiling is crashed in, like there's been a large battle,
Right.
and it's snowing.
Yep.
And winter is clearly not even been close to King's Landing yet.
Yep.
Obviously, it's working its way south, so we might have a while before she gets
It's
there.
pretty far south at this point. I think, because the Hound, I forget where he was when he met those people, but it's around the neck. It's around River Run. And
So
it was
but
snowing
that's
pretty
only
good.
halfway down to Dor.
Yeah, but it's getting
Well, yeah,
there.
it's getting there. Well, yeah, I'm saying it's not gonna be next episode then. Clearly,
That's true.
it's like episode 5.
Yeah. We'll just see. We'll see how serious they are about putting the pedal to the metal.
Right.
All right. So I think we're all excited for next week.
Yep.
Stick around after we sign off. Ben and I will light up some pipes,
Right.
and we'll talk about some stuff. I have a fantasy series that I will talk about and recommend to you guys that I think you'll like as Game of Thrones fans. How about that?
Nice.
So if you want to hear about that, stick around after the credits. Or, there's no credits. Stick around after we sign off.
Wait the 5 seconds.
Exactly.
That's,
All right. So that's all for now. I'm Ben DeBono.
And Emily Kirkhoff.
and Ben Kirkland.
Yeah. Goodbye. All right. Well, here we are. We've kicked out your wife. We're not
Right.
going to do any damage to your unborn child.
Thank God.
Yes. Where'd my lighter go? I might need to steal your lighter. Mine fell out of my bag, I guess. No, I bought this smoking bag, so I'd always know where everything was. Now I don't have my lighter. Anyway, we also opened up here this London Export Double Brown Stout from Bent Distillery here in the Twin Cities.
Where is it at?
It's in Roseville, I think.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. This is bottle 251 out of 400. And I feel like I've had this one with you before.
I don't think so. I think Bent is new to me. Bent Paddle up in Duluth is not new to me.
Right.
But this one is.
Anyway, here we are smoking. I've got Sunset Rum. I need to go get some more. I'm almost out. I think I'm going to be working out that way on Thursday, so I'll probably swing by and get some fresh tobacco. And you haven't pulled out your pipe in a very long time.
It's been since you last saw me smoke here. Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, I forgot it this last week at Men's Group.
Right.
But then it just, yeah. So,
This is the first time I've smoked since yesterday. So, there's that. No, it was 90 degrees yesterday here in the Twin Cities. And I tell you what you gotta do if it's 90 degrees outside. You get yourself a book, a pipe, beer, whatever you want. You fill up a kiddie pool 1 inch deep and you put your feet in that. You sit outside and you read and you smoke your pipe, and it's so a wonderful afternoon.
I could have read my textbook or something.
Right, you're getting your master's degree.
Yes, I've come up with my thesis question. It's really exciting.
What is your thesis question?
It is, how do... I have to remember the wording of it. How do graphic organizers in science vocabulary affect formative assessments?
Alright, I don't know what that means, but it sounds
It's
great.
essentially like mapping out a word instead of just writing down the definition, like coming up with actual usages of the word. When would you use this word? When wouldn't you? Like thinking about it in different contexts. Like that's like what a graphic organizer would do.
Fair enough.
So with science vocabulary, using that, does that make you perform better on a formative assessment, which would be like a, not like your MCA, not your SAT or ACT test, but like a in-class kind of a test? Does it make you perform better on that by doing a graphic organizer for those words instead of just writing down the definition?
Okay. So, how long does your thesis have to be?
Well, no, it's weird right now because this first class is like your literature review has to be at least 10 pages, which should not be an issue.
Right. Once you get writing a thesis, it's
And
not
then
hard to fill up the pages.
That should be it. I don't know, 10 to 20 resources, which I'm like 20 seems a little low.
Mhm.
I'm at 10 and I feel like I haven't even broken ground yet.
That's right.
I also don't have time to,
Well,
research
there's
another
that.
30 things, so it's gonna be a fun year.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that well, why don't you hit your thing about Game of Thrones?
Yeah,
first?
then I thought we could fight about Batman a little bit, because you had brought up Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we might talk about Game of Thrones, but at this point, you're just here to watch us smoke pipes.
And debate. If you enjoy a good debate, it'll be
All right.
contentious.
So, this I wanted to recommend a fantasy series that I've been listening to while I've been out biking. So I first encountered this series about 10 years ago. It's called The Second Apocalypse by an author named R. Scott Baker, Bakker. And it's kind of cool what he's done because he has this overarching series called The Second Apocalypse, but then he's broken it down into 3 sub-series. And so the first sub-series is called The Prince of Nothing, and that was 3 books, and that's what I read 10 years ago. The second sub-series, The Aspect Emperor, is the final book in that one's just being released. And then I'm not sure if he's still planning on doing the third one or if that one wraps up the series or anything. But, so I decided to re-listen to, or reread, I read them the first time, I listened to them this time, the Prince of Nothing trilogy, and my tastes have changed a lot in 10 years, but I still absolutely loved it. And then just started The Aspect Emperor yesterday. And if you're a fan of kind of this dark fantasy, George R. Martin style complexity, you gotta check this out. So the premise of it is that there's a holy war going on in kind of this fantasy. It's not Westeros, but Westeros as, I mean, you know the drill. It's like, yeah, just an alternate Earth type of thing. And then you have all of these different factions at play. And so you have the imperial people, you have the religious sides involved in the holy war. Then you have these different sorcerers, and there's one group of sorcerers who have called the Mandate, and they have these nightly dreams about the first apocalypse and this being called the No God that arose, and they have dreams that he's going to arise again and everything, so you have that looming on the horizon. And then you have this mysterious figure named Nanser Ember Kell who comes into the whole picture, who's from this solitary sect that may or may not be connected with some of this first apocalypse, and it's really about, you know, he really gets to it quickly. So if there's a frustration with George R. Martin that he doesn't get to stuff quickly, and by breaking this down into 3 sub-series, you get a lot of payoffs really fast. So the first book, The Darkness That Comes Before, can't recommend it highly enough. This is great stuff. So check it out. They're not as long as Song by Fire either.
Because if you're gonna write 9 books supposedly, and this is the 6th book that just came out, you would think that
This is the 7th. So the second series is 4 books long.
Oh, I thought it was 3.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
So, 7 books have come out. Which, George, shame on you.
Right, yeah, we'd all be waiting forever.
But it seems like there would be more. I'm surprised. Well, I guess if they're shorter too.
Right.
You kind of get to the point a little bit faster in each book.
But I'm mainly recommending it because it would make an awesome series, and so I need more people to read it so it gets super popular, and then somebody like HBO picks it up.
But did A Song of Ice and Fire really get popular until the show started?
It was more popular than this is.
Okay.
In nerd circles, we knew about it.
Okay.
You non-nerds are catching up now. Okay.
I've read all the books.
After the show went on the air, that doesn't count.
Well, there you go.
I'm 16 and I wandered into a bookstore and read this, so
Right.
like not in the bookstore. That would have been a long time, but you know what I mean.
Right.
All right, so after we stopped recording, you made a comment. We were talking about Christopher Nolan. You made a comment that you don't like The Dark Knight Rises, and I said that's my favorite in the trilogy. So let's fight this out.
Well, let's start with the football stadium imploding. Let's start there.
Okay, this seems to be your only complaint.
No, I feel like it's the start of a more complex argument. I feel like it's the more simplistic view, and we can dive into
Okay.
the things after that.
See, I feel completely indifferent about the stadium imploding. It's not my favorite scene, but I don't mind.
Well, so what makes it so? I just feel like things like that, or where Batman gets like taken down into the bad guy's lair and just gets beaten to a pulp in front of everybody.
Okay, I do like that. That's fantastic.
And then if they like the nuke at the end and the whole thing, I don't know. It felt so cliche. It just felt so overdone.
Well, okay, but the whole arc of the trilogy is from real life
Yeah.
to legend. And so the arc of the trilogy goes from the most realistic being Batman Begins to The Dark Knight to The Dark Knight Rises. It's about the progression of from fact to legend. That's part of what's going on in the series. And to me, like, those sequences, they're just typical comic book things. And to me, I'm completely neutral on the typical comic book things. Like, for those of you who listen to the podcast, I rail against comic book movies all the time because they don't actually do anything interesting with them. They just throw out the comic book moment and then don't do anything with them. And Dark Knight Rises actually does something with it.
Yeah, but I don't know, I guess I'm just... Maybe Christopher Nolan just does not do a good enough job of working from the real life in Batman Begins.
Well, he did a great job.
Well, I'm not saying that. I love Batman Begins and I love The Dark Knight.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, I just could not get on board. I don't know if it was what's the villain's name again?
Bane.
Bane.
Yeah.
So, Bane and that
I love
girl
Bane.
that like
And
just shows
Catwoman?
up in there.
What,
and-
Catwoman?
No.
Talia al Ghul?
Yeah.
Well, but she's not just a girl. Like, that's
I know,
a main
but-
character.
I know. Well, that's like it just, but like their relationships just seems so far fetched. I guess it does seem comic book like. I feel like maybe if I
Yeah, exactly.
But as a person who has never read a comic book in his life,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that has any meaning to me. I did not enjoy that world. How's that?
Okay, well, I'm not here to defend comic books because it's a silly medium most of the time, and so I don't have any great love for comic
Right.
books. But I think the theme of going from man to legend is fascinating. And part of what I loved about The Dark Knight Rises is that it took what happens at the end of The Dark Knight and it gave it real consequences. And to me, it made The Dark Knight a better movie because it took what happened seriously, and the fact that we told this lie and now 8 years later it's coming back to haunt us, and you actually have to deal with the lies that you've told. And I think that that was a really powerful theme and idea that's present in that movie.
But it's not, I guess, for the common viewer, not thinking about it like that, especially when
Well, it's not my fault the common viewers don't think. That's not my fault.
They still didn't make it, what, $500 million or however much it made anyways.
Right. Well, we can't go off of box office because Transformers is out there making all sorts of money, and
That's true.
that's absurd.
Well, that's the common viewer.
Yeah, I don't care about the common viewer. I have no. See, if you listen to the podcast, you know this is not the way to win a debate with me, to bring up the common viewer, because I have contempt for the common viewer.
I don't know if I call this a debate. I call this trying to understand where you're coming from.
There you go.
And
I like that.
the way that I viewed the movie was through the common man's way of viewing the movie, where when I watched it, I was not looking for metaphors. I was not looking for this overarching sequence between the three movies. I was just watching that movie on its own without even really relating it a little bit to The Dark Knight, because it does right at the beginning, but that's about it.
Well, there's your problem. See, you can't watch a Christopher Nolan movie as the common man, because he doesn't make movies for the common man. He makes movies that have a surface level appeal for the common man, but that are fundamentally deeper. Like, take Memento.
So does that...
You've seen Memento, right?
Yeah.
So the common surface level appeal is, this is a movie that goes backwards, isn't that cool? But then you get into it and there's all this stuff about truth and memory and what does it mean to actually find satisfaction for somebody like Leonard in that situation. And so, yeah, I can see where the common man would be dissatisfied with The Dark Knight Rises, but that just makes me like it more. I mean, the common man is completely happy to just go to see Transformers and watch Optimus Prime do whatever he does for 3 hours. And
I don't know what he had.
yeah, well, that's good. You don't want to be that common. But, you know, the common man is completely satisfied with all these Marvel movies, and they're complete gibberish. It's just the same thing over and over and over again.
So would you argue, maybe you wouldn't, that...
Probably.
Well, I'm not there. You haven't heard the jump I'm about to make. Would you argue that Christopher Nolan is better at selling to the masses than Stanley Kubrick was?
That's an interesting question. Because Kubrick was always very, and for those who don't know, Kubrick is my favorite director. I think he's the greatest director of all time. But Kubrick was always very conscious of public perception, not because he necessarily wanted to appeal to the masses, but because he was aware that that's where the purse strings lied. So after Clockwork Orange, he makes Barry Lyndon, which is a phenomenal film, but does not have mass appeal and fails at the box office.
It's not the one where they're like sitting in a boat for a long time.
Well, they're not in a boat for that long.
Okay, well, that's the movie I'm thinking of then.
Probably. I mean, there's hardly any boats in it, but yeah, that might be. But then after Barry Lyndon happens, he makes The Shining. And he deliberately takes a New York Times best-selling novel and uses that as the basis for his next adaptation, because he's aware that he needs to have this popular appeal if he wants to maintain the creative freedom that he has. I think, so for Kubrick, I feel like the popular appeal is a means to an end, and he did it well. Like, that wasn't the focus of his work, and he kind of would ebb and flow with that. I mean, I know that for a modern audience coming to something like 2001, it feels like, what was that? That was weird, and I don't like that. But for people at the time where you've never seen anything like that, you've never seen that kind of spectacle. Like, that had a mass appeal that it doesn't today. So I feel like Kubrick used the mass appeal, but that wasn't his wheelhouse, and as he got more and more comfortable, he's willing to go away from that. Certainly, I think Eyes Wide Shut, which is one of his best films, his last film, doesn't have that, and that's a movie that it's taken a good 15, 20 years to really be reevaluated and people to really come to appreciate. Whereas what Christopher Nolan does so well is he takes mass appeal and he does spectacle in such a way where he does spectacle with depth. So if there's a spectrum where at one end of spectacle filmmaking is Michael Bay, who is all spectacle and no depth whatsoever, and then the middle you have, kind of, maybe you have a few MCU movies that are a lot of spectacle and they throw out a few cheesy themes that make you feel like you had depth, but they're really not. Then you move a little farther and you're somebody like Steven Spielberg, where he does a lot of spectacle, but sometimes it's great, but a lot of times it's just kind of like, come on, Steven, this is ridiculous. And then you have somebody like Christopher Nolan, who he does spectacle, but he does it in such a way where there's just this astounding level of depth to it. I feel like so he does that really well. He does the mass appeal really well. But I also feel like if he hadn't ever gotten Batman, he could have been a great indie filmmaker for his whole career. He could have done $2-3 million
combined
projects.
amount of money that he made on Batman.
On the first day of Batman.
Right, exactly. So there's that, I guess, going with it too.
Yeah, which in some ways is a little, like, for as much as I love the movies he's made, it would have been fascinating to see what he would have done if he had never broken through with his sensibilities, and if he had just made kind of that Memento level movie the whole way through. He would have made some really fascinating movies. He wouldn't have made something like Inception, and he wouldn't have made The Dark Knight, and he wouldn't have made Interstellar, and he wouldn't be making Dunkirk, but he would have done some stuff that would have been really, really good for indie filmmaking.
Yeah, but I guess, so Christopher Nolan is the Stanley Kubrick who sold out to the masses?
No, I don't think he sold out. See, Christopher Nolan's such a weird anomaly because he got absorbed in the machine, but he kept his voice. And that's not what happens. Like, what you see happen all the time now is you have this hot indie director who gets absorbed, and then they give him the MCU movie or the DC movie or the Star Wars movie, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
Like Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One, his first movie was Monsters. Fantastic low-budget movie. Just absolutely astonishing. Then he did Godzilla, which first 30 minutes are really good, and then it just becomes a cliched, boring monster movie. And then he did Rogue One, which I thought was just a disaster. And so he's a director who's sold out. Did you like Rogue One?
I
liked
I liked that everybody died at the end of Rogue One.
Yeah,
I mean, because that was the only.
Me too, because that means we don't have to spend any more time with them. What a horrible cast of characters.
Well, it was. I'm not a fan of Star Wars, of Disney at least. I'm not a fan. I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not a fan of Disney deciding that these stories need to be told.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't. That story could have never been told, and there's enough fan fiction out there, there's enough, like, if you needed to find solace in something,
right,
you would have found it. But they didn't, they didn't need to make it. I thought that if you're going to make a movie about that, that's as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, then you didn't need to make a movie about. I mean, that was just it was an atrocious movie. And I didn't like The Force Awakens, but The Force Awakens was a masterpiece compared to Rogue One.
Well, yeah, The Force Awakens is just so much. Episode 4 just.
Well, yeah, it
hurt inside how much it was Episode 4.
I call it a regurgitated.
I know, it's like J.J. Abrams got paid like $1 billion.
Yeah, but that's what he does. J.J. Abrams. You want to talk about people who sold out who are an absolute hack? J.J. Abrams is a hack.
What about The Village? No.
Lost?
No. The other guy.
M. Night Shyamalan?
Yeah,
well, he just lost his mind.
Well, yeah. Between the two of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's alright.
I mean, M. Night Shyamalan is just something else. Like, we get to The Happening and they're running away from the wind. That That's maybe the low point of filmmaking history.
Lady in the Water is, I think, the only M. Night Shyamalan movie I've seen. That was,
oh, really? You haven't seen any of his early stuff? Because his early stuff is actually good.
Well, what did he make? I guess I don't...
Sixth Sense.
I guess I saw that. That was
Unbreakable.
Good. Unbreakable. That was actually pretty good.
Yeah, Signs.
Never saw Signs.
The first half of The Village.
Never saw any of it.
Like, that's when he went insane. He went insane halfway through The Village. Like, you could just see the moment in that movie when he just loses it as a director.
When he's like, I need to create a twist! And then he just, it's like, that's the only reason to make movies.
Exactly.
I mean, J.J. He was good on Lost, J.J. Abrams.
Well, he did the first 2 episodes, and then he left.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's
but
all
he got
he
his
did.
name on the credits the whole time?
It's like the executive producer. He wasn't involved in that show.
So he just created the problem and then left.
Exactly. You know, he did the Star Trek reboot, and I liked the first one, and then he did Into the Darkness, and it was bad. I mean, the guy's an absolute hack. He did Super 8, which was horrible.
I never saw that. So the first Star Trek I thought was good. I mean, that's a guy with mass appeal, though. Like, that appeals to the, not your, it doesn't appeal to your core, it appeals to, like, I'm going to sit in this chair, watch something.
Right.
I understand everything in it. I don't have to think about anything.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Well, but that's the way the movies are going. Unfortunately, which is the exact opposite way the TV is going.
So we agree that The Dark Knight Rises was a good break from that experience.
I agree that The Dark Knight is better than Rogue One.
This is how you win a debate, everyone.
Rises.
You convince the other person they're actually on your side. That's how you win debates.
No, did you not see? No, we did not agree there because I saw what you were doing.
You had to pause to realize why you didn't agree.
I was trying to
you had to really think about it. You were like, I think I do agree, and then you decided you didn't.
Because I realized what was happening. Watch, this gentleman right here has decided that if you can win as long as everyone else loses. If everyone else loses,
that's right. That's true.
Won.
No, you just get everyone on the winning side.
Oh my god.
That's one of the best strategies for debate, is you just convince the other person they're on your side, and then you won. You both won. Win-win.
Did you executive produce Thank You for Smoking?
That's a great movie. That was
I love that movie. That was good.
Yes. Alright, so The Dark Knight Rises. What else do we want to talk about, or do we want to shut it off?
No, we can keep it going. Well, I don't know. What else is up for debate between the two of us?
I don't know.
We don't need to get into the Catholic nonsense.
Well, we're both Catholic, so that probably won't be that exciting.
Yeah.
What other great movie? You didn't like 2001 when you saw it. Since you brought up Kubrick.
No.
But I feel like that's because you didn't watch it with me.
Yeah. Well, I need a narrator. I need a.
No. You need this screen behind. Like, 2001 is a spectacle movie.
I watched it on a 55-inch screen.
Oh, 55 is teeny.
Oh,
It's
God almighty. And just because I'm watching the whole freaking wall as a screen over here.
Once you're used to it.
And you have surround sound. I mean, there is a lot of perks here.
Yeah, so 2001 is a movie you need to see it as big of an experience as you can.
I mean, I guess that was the first Stanley Kubrick movie that I had seen. So I was not prepared for the, like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, weirdness or oddness of the movie, the very choppy feel between scenes sometimes. I guess I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, and it's a movie that I think you can't understand on one viewing, in part because it's like what people don't realize is when you're watching a story, there's a certain amount of narrative tissue that you just look for and you glom onto as an audience, and certain movies take that out, and 2001 is a movie that takes that out. And when you're not used to or prepared for that to be taken out, it can be very jarring to figure out what's going on. I mean,
it's like reading a piece of nonfiction, where none of the characters following. Well, I mean, some books do, but I mean, there's not like a specific sequence where we're following.
Right.
You know, like this person meets this person, and then they fall in love, and they get married, and
Right.
they go off to war, and then they do this, and then they do that. And it's very scripted throughout, and you can kind of tell what's coming next. But in a nonfiction piece, unless you know the history or the background of it, there's nothing to look back on.
Right.
So I guess that would be a fair comparison for me.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. It's a movie that doesn't have that through line in the traditional way. It does have a through line, but it doesn't have the traditional through line. I think it's a movie that requires you to check your expectations at the door, not only in terms of story and themes, but also just in terms of how a movie should work. It's the type of movie where you really have to just surrender to it, and that's almost impossible to do on a first or even a second viewing because you're trying to understand what's going on. And what happens in 2001 is not complicated in terms of the plot, but it has a reputation for being so because it doesn't have that through line. Like, you can explain what happens in 2001 in 1-2 minutes, and it makes perfect sense. It's the dawn of man, and you have these early monkey type guys who are going to evolve into humans, and then this monolith appears from a incredibly advanced society, a civilization, and it helps them take that next evolutionary leap. We find in the, flash forward to the present day or near future, we find a similar monolith on the moon. That monolith emits a signal to Jupiter. The Jupiter mission goes forward. Dave Bowman, when he gets to the source that the signal is emitting to, he goes through an interdimensional stargate, at which point he winds up in this interplanetary zoo where he evolves into the next step of evolution in the same way that the apes at the beginning took the evolutionary step at the end. It's very simple.
Simple thinking of an evolutionary step after us is...
Right, but I mean, just in terms of like the A, B, C, D, E of the plot, like it's not, it's not complicated.
Well, but the concepts behind them are.
The concepts are incredibly complicated.
Right.
What actually happens is pretty straightforward in the movie.
Which is weird because it feels like when you get to the end of the movie that absolutely nothing mattered until the end of the movie.
Right, but the whole thing mattered. The movie is broken up into 4 chunks. You have the Dawn of Man.
Right.
You have the Clavius base stuff where they discover the monolith on the moon.
Right.
You have the voyage to Jupiter, and then you have the third Stargate sequence at the end. You have 4 chunks, and then they all mirror each other. And so stuff is echoed between the 4 pieces.
See, we're going to have to watch it together, and you're going to have to be like, well, that's that. See, that's what I'm saying. I need a Mystery Science Theater 3000,
right.
But like a real one.
Right.
Like, not funny, just like, this is what's happening in this.
All right, we ran out of battery.
Sorry.
So this is the end of the video. Goodbye.
Bye.